Hello and welcome to another episode of Who Knew in the Moment, the podcast. I'm your host, Phil Friedrich, and today I am honored to have Sarah Naska with me. Sarah is the founder of SMH Aviation, and one of the focal points for her in her life, she has three important qualities that she focuses on. That is discipline, resilience, and character. So, Sarah, thanks so much for being on today.
Thanks so much for having me. It's going to be a good time. I'm excited.
Yes, it's going to be great. So, to start your journey, growing up, you are the youngest of three daughters and grew up with a, single mother. So, just talk a little about, growing up with sisters and in the environment there.
Yeah, so definitely the youngest of three girls. So you're fighting over clothes, you're fighting over the bathroom time. I had an older sister who was 6 years older than me, and another sister who was 2 years older. So being the youngest, you get the hand-me-downs and all of that. But I guess, in those environments, you kind of create your sense of humor young as a kid because you're trying to just survive craziness. So four girls, I was raised around four women. If you can imagine what that household is like. So it was fun. Yeah, we were all close. My sister obviously was older, so she moved out, and yeah, under a single mom's household. So we're free lunch at school. We got free lunch from the government at school. Growing up, we went to get hand-me-downs and thrift stores and free lunch. Groceries, that kind of stuff that was offered through the community. Different seasons of my life. So yeah, it was definitely humble beginnings growing up for sure. But I have a lot of great memories and I have a lot of great life lessons that came from it and a lot of grind and hustle that, developed because of it. So yeah.
Absolutely. Now, with your journey, growing up, you had an entrepreneurial spirit, where at school you would start to sell candy to classmates to generate some income. So, talk a little bit about that for you.
It's funny. This is like back in the 90s when you can go and buy this bag of Branches candy mix. It was like at the time it was a few dollars a pound. And so I would just
Yeah.
load up and get a few pounds worth of candy and then I would do a whole bag of purse, throw it in there, go to school, and I would sell candy for 25 cents or 50 cents a piece if it was depending on the margins and who needed what and how quickly the candy went. It went from 25 to 50 cents. And so obviously in the 90s, I'm just robbing people blind for 50 cents for a tiny piece of bubble gum. But, I made money to go to the football games. I made money to go to the skating rink and to do things, that I wanted to do. And that was the only way I was going to get to do it. So yeah, that worked well until one of my teachers like hijacked my purse and was like, "You're doing this in school," and I was like, "You're taking my livelihood." So yeah, it was kind of like it worked well until the one teacher got involved, but I still obviously found other ways to monetize things and go door to door, lawn care stuff. Can I wash your car? Can I take your dog on a walk? Like stuff, anything you can think of. As a kid, me
Yeah.
and my friends would get together and do it, just kind of create it as a fun game, but also what can we get? $5? Can we sell lemonade? Can we get $5 and let's go to the store, go to the pool for the day? So I learned quick that work gives you reward. And so if I'm not willing to do that, then I can't do all the other fun stuff like the other kids. So yeah, it was kind of a crazy, crazy mind I had. Always coming up with ideas, coming up with inventions. I thought about patenting one of them, just different things along the way. So it's just funny where you start and kind of resort back to being a middle schooler in your later years. Like that's actually really who I am.
Yeah. Well, so talk a little bit about, learning that work ethic and, one thing, maybe tying it into just your mom and, at one point I know you guys are traveling across the country doing mission work and just, seeing kind of that you know, work ethic to make it work, right? Whatever it takes just to make things get by.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, like I said, it's the only way I would have anything in my life is if I
Yeah.
worked for it. And so my mom, she worked really hard. She worked in a different way than I work. She worked very hard, and I'd like to work smarter, not harder. And so she utilized her skill set, and she was just, doing room service on Christmas morning in the DoubleTree Hotel when we're at home, waiting for her at 5 in the morning, like getting off her ship, stuff like that. So she modeled a lot of hard, disciplined life in regards to physical work and
Hmm.
obviously, and then faith. She was really passionate about faith and taking leaps of faith and big risks. And so those two together, I learned a ton from her, and it definitely shaped my life for sure. But in that, I also learned I don't want to work like that. I don't want to work just physically hard, work smarter, not harder. And so I started just utilizing my mind. How can I do that to create income, create contracts, create companies, things like that. So
I love it. Now, as your mom is working, in the world of, church and mission work and whatnot, that kind of prompts you to think, well, maybe that's something I would like to do. And when you first start school, you went into theological studies. So talk about, making that decision. I think it does frequently happen that we follow or we're, inspired by what our parents have done. And so talk a little bit about why you decided to go into that originally.
yeah, so obviously growing up in a Christian household, you're going to have to find out what you think and feel for yourself. And I think I've only just discovered that in the last handful of years.
Hmm.
So I
Yeah.
feel like there was a lot of, inception, if you will, in that decision in the sense of there are expectations but there was a few years in high school where I kind of had to just figure myself out and figure out what I thought and felt. And by the time I hit 20, I decided what I felt like I wanted to do outside of community college and doing all the other things. I was running around with my friends. I was like, I need to go for actual school. And it just was a next step in my curiosity. I'm a curious person. I like to read. I was really into psychology and even forensic science and stuff like that. I took law classes. So I was just really into just understanding the why behind the what. And so that
Yeah.
naturally translates over to religion and theology and just curious about what the world religions were. And so it made sense with where I was at in my life too. I felt like, I had recommitted my life to God and I was passionate about bringing this message to the world and I wanted to get around people that had a similar mindset. And so I went down with a bunch of young college age people to a Bible college and, you know, found God in a deeper way, found a mission, found more of a purpose. And so that's kind of where the missions kind of came in. Mine translated a little bit more international. Like my mom was in Canada and the States, and I did England and India and the States. And so, yeah, and it was great. It was a great life experience. And I still love traveling and I still have a heart for missions. I'll probably be going to Africa potentially this summer with some people from my
Amazing.
church. So, yeah. I just, I have a heart for people and I have a heart for the world. So it just makes sense, to be a part of all of the world and not just roam it. So yeah, that was
Yeah.
a side trail to do for a lot of years. I did that. And it was fulfilling
Now,
and it was fulfilling in a lot of ways, but there was something in my soul that was missing. And so I always worked on the outside and then did the fulfillment side and would support myself and then do the fulfilling side. And it just got to a point where I could make a bigger impact if I focused more of my energy here, and then I could really put my attention here once I have my monetary amount, to kind of push it. So, yeah.
absolutely. Now, in your, journey there, I always think people that travel frequently or have had to move in life, you learn this skill, and that is how to connect with people relatively quickly. So talk a little about that for you as you reflect on, your mom traveling and then you traveling and just really learning how to connect with people in a quick manner so that way you can have connections and you're not an outsider for a long period of time as you're in these new environments.
Yeah, it's definitely a superpower once you learn it because it's the bridge to everybody. It's the bridge to every relationship. And so, yeah, I definitely have learned how to be flexible and creative with how to meet people. And when I do meet people, I tend to, part of my personality and part of the conditioning of moving so much, I tend to go deep with these people quickly. I feel like I
Mm,
go in like family, I'm all in until I'm all out. It's like there's no reason to be all out from the go, I'm all in relationships, and unless you give me a reason. And so with friendships, and networking specifically, that all ties into being able to be approachable when you're talking to people and asking questions, asking the right questions, and being able to be authentic in your conversation because you're genuinely there. You're present in that conversation because you're there in the moment because you're winning the person. You're working on a relationship. And so, yeah, that's definitely it's not easy to do I'm an introvert, so it's not something that's like exciting to be like, oh, let's get ready and go out and talk to random people. It's like, no, it sounds terrible. And it does require a lot of work, but in this environment now for work, being able to just pull that skill set out and be able to have conversations pretty freely and seamlessly because you have to go deep with people quick or you don't know how long you'll have the relationship. So you got to find out why they're in your life and what's the reason. Let's get to it. If it's work related, let's get to it. If it's a contract, let's get to it. If it's a relationship, let's start the process. So yeah, that's kind of been my approach on it, and it's worked. It's worked well because you meet a lot of people, when you put yourself out there. So
Yeah. Now, for you, as you kind of grew and expanded, eventually the itch to travel became a important part of you, and you said, "Well, gosh, how could I potentially get paid to travel instead of just traveling on my own dime?" And that opens up a career opportunity for you. So, talk a little about making that decision and the entrance into the world of aviation.
yeah, so obviously I've always had a love for aviation. It's been in my heart for years. I had family that worked at Delta, so I was always up, and this is pre 9/11 stuff where you could actually go, and go into the terminals. I'd go in all the time and just, watch planes and just sit in the tarmac, watch the, planes come in. So I've always loved aviation and I thought I would end up working there. This is, again, before the airlines are not as good as they are today.
Yeah.
This is when they provided a lot more stability. But anyways, dream big, Sarah. But I didn't have a ton of people around me going to college or doing anything wild because I was in a small area. And so, I just was looking at my surroundings. But anyways, yeah, so aviation just was always there. And because I grew up traveling, those two kind of was just like, okay, what could I do in aviation? And I had toyed with the idea of working again in my mid 30s back at Delta. Like, should I get a ticket counter job just so I can get free flights? What can I do to create like some sort of excitement in my world right now? Because I'm just feeling like all I do is numbers and raising kids and working at the church, but I don't feel like I'm doing anything fun for me, which is exploring
Yeah.
an adventure. And so, yeah, so I toyed with that idea and I was like, no, I could not push a cart and do that. I could not be in that environment. It would be so stressful. So, what could I do? And so I just started Googling and I came across corporate flight attending for private jets. And you could set your own contracts. If you didn't go with a company, you could be your own contractor. And so I decided, yeah, I'll try it. So I went through the certifications through flight safety, and it took me about a year to the day to get my foot in the door. And I started working for private owners and private jet brokers across the country, taking charter flights or private owner flights on their vacations or on CEO trips or picking up royalty in overseas or vacations, whatever it was. And so, yeah, I started just enjoying my life again through travel while I was creating income through flight attending. And it was just a perfect kind of avenue for me to get my foot in that industry, see what it's all about, and see if it's something I like. And, I said yes or no to any contract. And so I had a lot of flexibility and freedom with my life and my schedule. And I was already working in other industries. So it was not my all, everything I needed to survive. So I could kind of pick and choose and it was great. Yeah, for the season it was a great experience for sure.
Now, I think for many people that aren't exposed to the world of private flying, right? They say, gosh, how the heck do you even get started in it? So talk a bit about, getting into that world, because not the majority of people don't fly that way, right? The majority of people don't travel that way. So it was it connections for you, and then talk a little bit about the connections that you made once you were in the world.
So as far as getting my foot into the world of aviation, I didn't have connections. I went to conferences alone. I knocked on every door. When I say that,
Yeah.
I would email headshots, and you're not supposed to do that, but I'm like, I will put anything right now. Here's who I am, and so yeah, I did that every other week to the same companies for a solid year before I got my first phone call, and it
Wow.
was just because I was in the top of mind when they were in a bind, and they needed
Mhm.
me to do a flight on Easter Sunday, which, is kind of brutal to the soul when you're a Christian and your
Yeah.
whole life is around that. You're like, oh, am I going to take the trip or am I going to go to church? And I took the trip because I felt like it was an answer to my prayer. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, anyways, I was willing to make a sacrifice and I helped them in a bind. And then that cracked open another relationship, which cracked open. And so it was just a combination, domino effect of
Yeah.
everything that I had worked on over that course of time. But you have to go in and get a reputable company that you're certified through. So FACS or Flight Safety, those are two companies that are industry reputable. And there's a lot of other companies that will try to say, you can be certified here, or you can don't do that. If you're going to do that, don't do that. You'll waste all your money. Yeah, because I did that. I did that first, and then I spent 10 grand, and then I had to spend another 10 grand. Got certified in an industry credited one, and so yeah, now all that's just recurring education when you go back. But once you get your foot in, then it is about what companies are hiring, just like any other job, and then being able to get your foot in there and work with the clients. So starting out from any random client to working my way up to celebrity and elite clientele over the course of the 10 years that I was flying for different brokers. It was super fun. I had some really fun flights with some really cool people along the way.
Amazing. Now, as you're, growing in that world, I know you also decided, hey, maybe looking into other types of investing and real estate became something top of mind for you. So talk a little bit about what opened your eyes to that. Was it people you were meeting as you were, working, or was it just new opportunities that were presenting themselves? Talk a little bit about how real estate kind of came to be on your radar.
Yeah, so I was in real estate passively for a lot of years, just creating income for my family, a side hustle, buy a house, renovate it, put a renter in it, and create income. So I was doing that until about 2020, super passively, and then I created my own company out of it. So I started a company while I was flying, while I was doing other investments, while I was doing leadership. I started both of these kind of things around the same time frame. So yeah, with investing, obviously I was doing small projects. I was from a small town. So, the biggest houses were not that much, or the people that I knew did not have that much success for me to really kind of learn and glean from. So my ceiling was capped a little bit from just my surroundings and in my
Mm.
environment and who the people I was seeing doing things. So once I stepped out of that in the private world, you're seeing things so differently because money is treated very differently and it's excessive. So you're like, holy cow, they're not worried about anything right now. I'm over here worried about how to pay my bills, and they
Yeah.
are literally excessive in their food bill, and they're throwing it all in the trash. And just that kind of life, you start to see money differently. You're like, okay, it's currency, it's energy, it's working for you. So I think the mindset shift outside of the environment was crucial for me because I saw
Yep.
people how they treated money differently, and it wasn't scarce, it was abundant. There was a lot of it going around, and why are you worried about this? So that changed my investment strategies to kind of go more commercial and go with bigger projects. And when I started kind of dabbling into those industries, I went through some masterminds. I joined some programs of some masterminds to kind of help me in that as well to keep that scaling my business for the investments. And I made partnerships through those masterminds and became partners with their projects. And so, yeah, it kind of has spiderwebbed out a little bit, if you will, from aviation with investments between both industries. They're very intertwined in the same kind of thread. So there's a lot of work between the clientele flying on the jets. They're usually investing in a lot of things. So, yeah.
Yeah. Now, you talk about masterminds, and I think for so many people, that idea of a mastermind is highly relevant. But there's also that cost, the pay to play, right? To get into some of these rooms, there's a cost associated with it. And many people say, gosh, I don't know, that's a lot of money. And I think, folks like yourself and myself, we'd say, it's an investment, right? Like that money spent should grow me, should develop me, and it should make some very valuable connections. So, talk a little bit about the value add that you've received from some of the masterminds that you've been a part of. I know you said, hey, connections, obviously, there's been business opportunities, but even maybe the mental side, right? Seeing things differently than what you thought were even possible.
Yeah, so the mental side for me, a lot of the masterminds is accountability. And it's
Yeah.
somebody that's looking into your life and you have to show up for them. And so because of that expectation, you're going to show up a little bit more than you would if you did not have them in your life. And for me, I need accountability with my personality. Even though I am self-driven, I will not be as driven, just like going to the gym alone. I'm going to work out as much as I want today if I'm in the gym alone. But if I see people hitting it hard in the gym and my playlist is on point, that competition is going to kick in and I'm going to want to train harder. Or if I have an actual partner beside me actually saying, all right, three more, two more, put another five on, whatever it is, you're going to train way harder just because you're there present with that person. And so masterminds for me have been that. It's been that weekly call where I'm checking in, I'm making sure that I'm showing up for myself. And each mastermind has a niche that I sign up for, whether it's a construction or real estate one, or whether it's a business one with marketing and systems and structures, or it's a communication one, how to craft your message, how to lead with integrity and character, and how to communicate that to this world. They're all different mastermind programs, but they all benefit your business and your
Yeah.
mindset and so for me, the accountability has been crucial and being able to capture their systems because when you join in, they give you all the benefits of what they've done that's worked and curriculum that has worked for their teams so that you can utilize that and have access to it. So just practical, just having someone there to log in every Wednesday, regardless of your mental health. Here you go, you're on call. Suck it up, Buttercup. It's time to shine. So you
Yeah.
know what I mean? That kind of it is probably more than anything because then when you're on those calls, it recalibrates your week, it recalibrates your focus for that area that you're working on. And most entrepreneurs are competitive. They're wanting to grow farther and they're wanting to create more income and have more reach. And so, yeah, I think that has been my main thing. Outside of the practicals, you can learn a ton. You can learn a lot and save a lot of money if you're in a construction mastermind and you're doing real estate or you're working with underwriters in those projects and you can save a lot of money even though you're investing that money into their program. They're giving you education that will save you headaches and money in the future on top of, like you mentioned, the connections, the collaborations, the partnerships, the investments. So yeah, I'm a firm believer in it, and I'm passionate about coaching people too. And I'm always looking for more partners to coach, people that are interested in taking their business to the next level, females that are, wanting to scale their business because we're better together. Iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. So yeah, that's
Mhm.
kind of how I feel on that.
As you're, coaching, developing different people, what do you tend to find? And once again, everyone's different, but what do you tend to find are like common reasons for people to, not feel like they're getting to the next level or to the level that they'd like to be getting to?
Obviously it's mental health and mindset. I mean, our everything is in here. We create our reality in here. So it's a
Yeah.
good day based off of how we're feeling when we wake up. Well, that's based off, it could be the weather. We could dictate that based on it's rainy, so it's a terrible day. And then you know what I mean? So I think mental health is crucial. Our diet's affected by that. So I think we can limit that. But I think who you're around, auditing your circle, who you're around is super important to your mental health. And if you have people that are constantly negative or are sucking your energy and you're pouring into people your energy that you should be focusing on business, creativity, flow state, something that could be really productive to humanity. You're over here pouring your energy into someone that doesn't want to fix their life or doesn't want to help or has a business problem but won't listen or whatever it is, right? So I think auditing your circles is key as well. So yeah.
I love it. Well, as would only be fitting for you, you decide that, hey, maybe I should move. And you end up finding yourself moving across the country. So talk a little about making that decision to move. Was that spawned by, business relationships? Was that spawned by an opportunity? Talk a little about, one, the catalyst to do it, but then two, actually making that move and you and the kids making the jaunt out west.
Yeah, I had the itch to move for a few years. I was trying to strategize exactly where. I looked at Charlotte for about 5 minutes to see if I wanted to drive up there and move because it was close. But it was just one of those things that I knew that I outgrew the area I was in. I had made it to the best neighborhood in the area. My kids were at the best schools. And I still was like, all right, what are we doing? What's next? This is like, I'm bored to death.
Hmm.
Like, let's do something else. And again, it's Georgia. So it's not hard to get to the best part of the neighborhood when your mortgage is only 3 grand a month. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In LA, that's a whole nother level we're talking for a basic
Yep.
starter. So, but yeah, so as far as what was the first part of your question on that?
Just what was the catalyst to get you
Okay, on
out
moving.
there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So moving to LA, I had been on red eyes back and forth, going for conferences, investments, projects with people or girlfriends. I had a couple girlfriends. I had a marketing girl that lived in LA, and I had hired her a year earlier, and she was like, "Let's get you out to LA." I was doing photo shoots for the jet stuff. We were just trying to really kind of build the brand. And so I started coming out, and then I was tired of being on a red eye, and I was like, "All right, is it the right thing?" Because I'm always in Seattle, Vegas, or LA, and I've never wanted to move to LA. That was the thing.
Yeah.
I was going to move to California. I would have probably moved to Southern California, like San Diego or somewhere like that. But LA just felt like all these things were opening up. I went to another conference. I met a girlfriend. She was a realtor. Then we became really good friends, and it just the social community started to develop. So it just started to feel like, yeah, it feels good. And I was ready for a change. So I was ready for an adventure. And
Yeah.
I narrowed it down from several places, but LA was just kind of the home run for us. And we decided to sell the house, do an estate sale, sell everything in it. Because I had a golf cart, I had a 3-car garage with a golf cart. I'm like, I can't take that to California. What am I going to do with all this stuff? I got double freezers out here. I'm like living the
Yeah.
freaking dream. What am I going to do with all this stuff? So, I mean, I'm still sad about having to let go of a lot of that stuff because that for me was stability. That represented
Right.
everything growing up with no food and always having a rental and never having any clothes. Like that house and that lifestyle represented everything for me. So it was a challenge for me to be like, is this worth it? So,
Yeah.
but we were like, yeah, we're doing it. Let's just do it. So we did an estate sale, and then I went and bought an RV. Went up to the RV lot, and I was like, all right, we can either ship a pod, spend all this money of crap that we're going to send that we don't want anymore, or we can just get new. So we loaded down an RV with our essentials, like stuff we needed, towed the Bronco, and my kids drove the Lexus in front, and my dog and me were in a 33-foot Jayco Red Hawk RV. Sleeps 10, and so with the trailer and the RV, it was like 40 feet. So it was crazy. Never drove an RV before. It's like we're doing this. Out to the West Coast we go. So it was crazy. It was a little stressful. I can tell you, I have a little
Yeah.
PTSD from thinking about the RV. I'm like, oh God. Some of the roads, like in the middle of like Mississippi and through Texas, were like there was just concrete on either side. And the RV, you get 1 ounce of like concrete that's uneven or wind, you're like this, and you
Over.
have no room. You're just like in a tunnel, and you're just like, oh my gosh. Meanwhile, the dog's throwing up all over the RV. So
What an
we
event.
did that for 5 days across the country, and so we had some rookie errors. I didn't have my water hose one day, so we couldn't hook up water. I'd never driven an RV. I don't know anything about it. Still hardly
Oh.
can work the thing, but we made it.
Now with that, someone listening right now, maybe they're not contemplating moving, maybe they are, but maybe they're contemplating making a big life change. And I always think anytime you're thinking about making a big life change, one of your hopes is that after you make the change, everything just falls into place. And very rarely does everything just fall into place.
Yeah.
There's days where you're like, what the heck did I do? Right? Or there's an event that happens, did I make the wrong choice? So talk a little bit about that for you. Like one, the confidence and, the ultimate decision to take this step, but then two, how you weathered any of those days where you're like, well, I made the choice, now I'm here, but maybe I'm second guessing. Maybe I shouldn't have been here.
Yeah, I definitely have had a lot of fears going into this. I had a panic attack before I came, like coming into this, like, oh God, the prices, I'm gonna, burn all my assets to the ground and go out in hopes of living this amazing dream. And so I've had so many experiences like that. But whenever it came time to specific things lining up, they did line up. Things never lined up perfectly. Let me just tell you that they have not lined up perfectly since I've been here. It's
Yeah.
been there have been some things that have lined up perfectly, enough things that have helped me stay anchored in LA. And so I'm still in process. I've been out here 8 months, going into nine, and it's been, you're establishing your entire life, your entire social circle, your work life, your community. My kids are online school, so getting them situated here and making sure they're doing school, because it's just 100 things at all times. And so between that and then leaving the comforts of your homes, leaving the sacrifices you did make to live a baseline life out here, you know, um, that all plays into it. So you second guess things and you're like, if it all burns to the ground, is it worth it? Yeah, it is. It's all worth it if it all burns to the ground. You know what I mean? So I have just came to this inner knowing that, like, when I make a decision and I feel like it's been settled by logic and emotion and God and all the things in the front end. Like, financially, it wasn't super logical. I had enough money to make it work, but it wasn't super logical in the sense of, this isn't a place that you should go to retire kind of thing.
Yeah.
You want to go somewhere cheaper when you're going somewhere where you don't want to have to work so much. But the buzz of the city is what makes it worth it, right? So it's just, there's people here that are hungry and it's exciting and everyone's going after a dream. And I know a lot of people are looking for work and looking for contracts and jobs, but it's all part of the process. So I think it's waves. So I answer your question in the sense of, like, it comes in waves where you have certainty 100%. You have more confidence before you take the leap because you're so confident that it's going to work. Then you take the leap and you're like, wait, it didn't work as much as I thought it did. So you second guess and you go back and you reevaluate. You're like, did I miss it? And then you come back with more confidence. No, because this is working and that's working. And so I think it's just a process, staying committed to the process and not expecting things that, when it's a right thing for your life or a God thing, or it doesn't mean it happens perfectly or seamlessly.
Yeah.
It's not without, some things worth having isn't without fighting for, sometimes
Yeah.
you have to fight for it. And sometimes it comes super easy. And I think it depends on the season that you're in. And so, yeah, I feel like I'm going to be entering into a season where things are becoming more with ease. I'm going to hold on to that because it's been a crazy fight the last number of years trying to get here, and then, get up on my feet out here and keep everything motion moving forward. So yeah, it's been a
I love it.
journey for sure.
Yeah.
I got my
Now talk a little.
adventure. I'm not bored. I am not bored.
Yes. Based on everything going on, I believe that to be 100% true. Now, talk a little bit about, earning and bidding contracts. And, I know once again, you've been in masterminds. Has there been a certain mentor for you that's helped you decide to move into that space, or what kind of was the, ultimate decision to move into that space in the private aviation space?
Yeah, so negotiating, I've always been one to negotiate a little bit when it comes to, like, growing up. Like, I looked into law. I wanted to be a lawyer because I knew how to negotiate. I can see both sides. So I know how to negotiate. And that's just kind of a natural skill set that I understand how it works. And I understand the psychology behind it, so I can do it well. So I think that side of it, negotiating a contract for aviation just crossed over because I was already doing that with investments, right? Someone calls
Yeah.
me, an investor that's a off-market buyer, and we have to settle the deal over the phone together, right? Or when you're doing a wholesale deal, you have to settle the deal without, parameters. You're face to face. So I think when you learn those skills, it kind of translates easier into aviation. So, but yeah, with aviation, it's just the same thing. You're negotiating a contract rate as a flight attendant. You're negotiating, like, I was a personal trainer for a lot of years. You're negotiating an hourly rate with either your employer or your clients. You know what I mean? And with
Yeah.
aviation, you're negotiating a percentage based on the price of the project and what you bring to the table. So depending on the project, it could be 1/4%, 0.5%, 2%, 3%, 5%. Bigger expensive deals are going to be lower percentages, right? So a $200 million deal is going to be a lot lower percentage. It's not going to be a 5% on that, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just knowing your worth. And I had stuff going on with the contract, and people were trying to negotiate me out of a percentage, and I was like, not happening. It's coming back full circle. I'm taking the full percentage that's mine, and they came back full circle. So you have to have confidence in that, in your product, in your ability, and knowing what you're offering as value. You're adding value
Yeah.
to these clients. It's not that you're trying to play a game to create more income. You're literally, like, some of this stuff, there's no way around these fees. You know what I mean? I have fees that I will have to pay out to people that help find these project jets or find these engines or find these, people that have the brand new jet that's on a wait list. Like I have to pay money for that too. So it's money in and money out. And it's all part of the negotiations as well. And so, yeah, you just got to utilize that skill set, kill it with kindness, but you got to be sly. You got to know how to work
Yeah,
it. So, or you get taken advantage
abs-
of. People will take advantage of you all day long. People go behind you in business all day long and they
yeah.
sideswipe you. You give them information, they call and they make the offer, and you're just like, I would never. But it
Hmm.
happens. People can be shady. So you have to kind of play it a little bit. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, and so with that, I think, you hit the nail on the head, and that is there's obviously an element of negotiation, but then there's also knowing your value,
Yeah.
right? And I think those two things, if you're constantly the lowest cost provider, eventually you'll probably burn yourself out, right? I mean, that's just kind of the way it is because if you're not enjoying it and you're not able to make ends meet, you're not going to be in the business for very long. And, people that run businesses understand that, but talk about that for you, just having that belief in yourself, because I think especially when people are starting businesses, they will undercut and then wake up one day and go, I can't believe I did that for that little amount of money. Like that was not worth it. And so it's having that balancing act of negotiation, but the belief in yourself that I'm valuable. I'm adding worth to this situation.
Yeah, people value what you value. And so if you put a
Hmm.
value and a price tag and an energy around something, people can feel that. And people also value what they put money into, right? And so if they only put $5 to be a part of this conference, they may or may not show up. It was $5. Who cares? If they pay
Yep.
5 grand to be a part of that conference, those tickets are booked, the hotel is there, they have committed to the process. And so I think, the higher you put your prices, the more in demand you become because you work less, work smarter, not harder, but your energy, your execution is focused. So you're really able to give that extra to the people that are paying that value. So yeah, it's definitely all part of it for sure.
Yep. I love it. Now, for you, just as you're growing, what has been one or two things as you look back at starting the business, different businesses that you've had and been a part of, that you're like, these are one or two takeaways that I wish I would have known before I even started.
Two takeaways for business.
Yeah.
I wish I would have known networking is your net worth earlier.
Yeah.
That's one thing. I was kind of taught that like being humble, you don't push yourself on people and like there was more of a false humility with it, I guess, in the sense of like,
Yeah.
and when you kind of take that off and you're like, this has nothing to do with my personality of being humble or not. This is everything to do with I can add value to your life, you can add value to my life, and we can do this together. This could be an amazing opportunity if we link arms. Like you change your mindset and your shift on that. So I wish I would have known because I didn't start actively networking for probably 2 years ago, actively, 2.5 years, being like, no, I am intentional. I will be here. Now with aviation stuff over the course of 10 years, I did go to conferences, but I was not in an environment where everywhere I went, you're going to know my name. You're going to get a flyer. There's no shame involved with, so I wish I would have known that. And I also, as far as like the confidence and believing in yourself, if I would have known earlier that the only person that you have to please is yourself outside the audience of God, right?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
would have known that I was the only person that needs to make myself happy, then life and work life would have been a lot easier because I would have had a different strategy and approach for a lot of years.
Yeah.
So, yeah, confidence in your ability to take care of yourself is crucial. Building that trust by keeping personal disciplines to yourself is crucial. And that develops this trust to make good decisions within yourself when you keep those personal commitments and those personal disciplines. When you build that confidence within yourself, then you're able to kind of be the own affirmation. You're not looking for other people to affirm you. And in that, you can really develop your dreams, your passions without fear of people wondering what they're going to think, say, or do. And you can then begin to lead your life and your business and express yourself, not scared to be seen. And in that, it translates into role play. And it's authentic and it's vulnerable, and people want to be around authentic, vulnerable people. So it's not false humility. It's not all these other things. It just comes back
Yeah.
to building it within yourself and then building that network around you. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Well, Sarah, are there any other pivotal moments you want to share in your journey of how you've gotten to where you're at today?
Pivotal. On my face before God, that's a pivotal journey, sir.
Yeah.
I say, get on your face before the Lord if you're going to go in business, because it's going to be a whole wild ride. No, but it's been fun. It's been, a lot of life lessons. I think learning that everything in life is a lesson. And when you stop fighting that lesson and you embrace it, that this is where I'm at, or this is uncomfortable feeling. This is a bad lesson. I don't want to repeat that one. This is a good life one. I'm going to apply that one. And so, yeah, just applying everything as a lesson and then taking the good from it, leaving the rest, keeping your eyes fixed forward, moving forward, keeping your vision strong, your passion strong, loving your family, loving God.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love
Best is
it.
yet to
Well,
come.
Sarah, facts. That's an absolute fact. Well, Sarah, I want to say thanks so much for being on today and just sharing your journey, and excited to continue to watch you grow. And 5 years from now, we'll be doing this again, talking about probably another business and the growth of the current one.
Appreciate it. It's so fun. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.